How's it going? I hope you're having a great day so far. So, I wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about this question that I don't think I've ever recorded a podcast episode on called When Should I Start Investing and Doing SEO in My Business? And this is such a good question. And I think it's definitely one we want to ask ourselves as business owners, as small business owners, because there's so many different things we can be investing and spending our time on. And most of us are on limited time and we've got, moving parts, families, lives, and SEO can feel like this big monster of a thing that is hard to know kind of where to start. And it can also be hard to know, should I be investing in this? So I also want to refer to episode 351 of the podcast. That's called Why Does SEO Take Time? Which is a good complementary episode to this one because I talk about why SEO takes time, can take time. So, one thing I was thinking about, and I this quote by a Spanish poet called Antonio Machado. And he says, "Traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking." And this whole concept of the path is made by walking, the solution is made by doing. Answers come when we're in action and we're active and aware and we're present, right? And I get it. Sometimes it's nice when everything is laid out before you and you've just got the whole plan. But let's be honest, most times life doesn't work like that. And SEO, and I would say, I would even venture to say digital marketing as a whole does so much better when we are actively doing and trying and seeking and that sort of thing. So, same thing goes for SEO. My recommendation and like my immediate response is the sooner you can start doing SEO, the better. Because SEO can take time, can take, just time from a technical point of view for Google to find our sites and index and, start to recognize our businesses. So when I say index, all I mean is Google's taking the information from our websites or from our online presence, and it's taking it back to its own databases and then understanding, what do you do? What do you sell? What are you about? What content are you producing? So the more we get out there initially and the more information we can give Google and now AI tools, the more they have to work with. And so, yeah, the sooner, the better. Now, I get it. Got a lot of different things going on. And that's why I teach content repurposing. That's why I teach recycling. You don't necessarily need to create brand new content for an SEO strategy. Maybe you could reuse a podcast episode or you can use whatever you're doing on social media. It doesn't have to be something specifically for SEO unless you want it, it can be, but there's ways to kind of do shortcuts, right? And this is also something I'm teaching inside the Quiet Growth program, which is our accelerator program for digital marketing, for SEO, and Pinterest. So I think the more we get out there and start content, whether that's the website, you can use any platform you want, anything that people can access and AI tools can access publicly online will work. Doesn't matter. I'm really of like to have a recommendation on platforms just to find digital marketing platform that works for you, that you can easily get on, log on, take action on. If you have a team, then you need to make sure your team can log on and take action on. But the sooner the better. Now, how do we kind of think about this for a new business or someone who maybe has a website, have never done SEO? So one of the biggest parts of awareness or conscious building SEO is we understand what our audience is searching and how are we giving them content that satisfies that search, right? So sometimes, and so when I'm saying, what that audience is searching in SEO, we call that keywords, which are basically words or phrases that our audience searches online to find us. And so we want to think about, what are they searching? Like, what are they searching in terms of my service or product? Am I fulfilling that question? Like, am I answering that question? And are there also any searches that maybe aren't directly related to what I do, but are still part of the solution I provide? So, for example, let's say you're a doctor who helps with anxiety. So, and maybe you do some sort of therapy sort of thing. Or maybe you're a psychiatrist, for example. So someone might be searching something about anxiety, but maybe they're searching about another symptom too. Like maybe they have shortness of breath, or they've got panic attacks, or maybe they have a fear of specific thing. So you need to be speaking about all the things that are going on for the user, for the visitor, for your ideal audience, not just the thing that's like specifically related to you. So if you're only focused on like anxiety therapy, it's going to work, but it's going to limit that a lot. So again, getting all those different angles are going to help with the visibility of how you're showing up in Google and AI, and how your audience is finding you from different perspectives, because maybe they don't think it's anxiety. Maybe they think it's something else. Same thing goes with e-commerce businesses, right? So if you sell a specific product, you want to show up in searches for that product. But if someone's not aware that your product exists, then it's going to be a little difficult, right? So you need to find keywords and just like a different angle. The other thing too with e-commerce that we see a lot is you need to have really clear who your competition is. And if you're in a very competitive space, you need to find a way to distinguish yourself and position yourself in a unique way. Again, using SEO keywords that maybe aren't being used by the bigger players, because it's going to be hard to compete, right? If you're competing against a huge brand, unless you have that budget and you're a huge brand too. I'm assuming most of you listening to this are small businesses. So the other thing I want to reflect on, going back to this idea of starting sooner rather than later, which I think is so beautiful with marketing, is that the sooner you start, the more feedback data you get on how people are finding you. So when you start showing up in the Search Console, which I've talked about many, many times, but the Google Search Console is a free tool that Google gives us to understand what our website's being found by, and how we're getting found online, basically. And so Google will share with us, and it has in the tool, reports that tell us what keywords people are searching. And so those are real words and phrases that the people who find our site are clicking on and coming to our site on. And I've seen time and time again that those keywords can actually turn to additional ideas. We actually had a client who is an e-commerce brand. They're doing well. We reincorporated some of the keywords that came straight from the Search Console. We hadn't thought of them initially, we hadn't brainstormed that angle for their product. And those keywords and those pieces of content, which in this case was a blog, ended up being the top ranking keyword, that again came from the tool. But why did we get that tool? Why did we get that keyword? Because we took the time to start taking action, start building that traffic and those leads and those sales. So the tool was able to give us back kind of feedback. So this idea of the path is created by walking also includes the data side of doing SEO, of the more data you put out there, the more information you put out there, the easier it is for these tools and for Google to tell us, hey, people are also finding you here. They, maybe you're not searching, you're not getting found, you're not on page 1, but if you're even on page 30, you're still getting a little data, a little traction. And so that keyword you can reincorporate into your strategy, and you can start getting found over there as well. And that is just part of doing marketing. No one, even if you're a huge, multi-million dollar brand, all brands need to learn and experiment, and it's an ongoing process. And you start having your, I call them your star players, like your top pieces of content that just keep bringing you sales and they're doing well. But there is always an element of experimentation, of learning, of seeing what's out there. And I think that is something that happens when you just start doing the work. And the other thing I want to talk about as well is, I know how anxiety provoking it can feel to want it, to have to do it all right at the beginning. But just think about doing a little bit at a time. So even if it's like 1 hour a month or 1 hour a week, what can you start doing today to learn SEO, to start getting found, to making your website or your online platform a great place to be? It doesn't need to be super complicated. Now, maybe there's some SEO experts out there that say, well, you've got to put out a certain thing to get results. Yes, I agree. Like, if you want to really go in, you need to put out a certain things. But I prefer you start taking small bits of action from the beginning, because then when you do have a chapter of your business where you can invest or you can spend more time, then suddenly you've got a bit more of a baseline and you're not starting from 000, right? Even just getting your Search Console and your Google Analytics set up is a big, big deal. That can help a lot. And again, I just teach like 1 hour a month or 1 hour a week, like whatever you can fit in right now, just do that. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It really, really doesn't have to be. And then when you have a moment in your business where you can learn and do more, or you can invest and hire an agency or hire a consulting consultant to do more, great. There you focused on it a little more. And then you can let it kind of do its thing in the background. That's kind of how SEO works. It kind of like simmers in the background. And then there's like a moment where you're going to tweak a little bit more and then it'll simmer. So it can definitely be something, if you can't kind of do it, you can't like invest 100%, then you can still have it start working for you for the beginning. So absolutely, my recommendation is to start as soon as you can, as soon as you launch, start looking at your keywords, start understanding how SEO works. I've got tons of episodes in this podcast that go through the basics of SEO. And I also have an SEO course that now is tied with an AI optimization course for showing up in AI. It's called Homegrown Traffic. You can go to courses.digitalbloomiq.com and get more information about that. And then I've got this great group program, which I already mentioned, the Quiet Growth Program, where we teach both SEO and Pinterest marketing as these search marketing efforts that you can use in your small business. And I'm just curious what you think about all this. If you are kind of frustrated by SEO, I'd love to hear from you. I hang out a lot on Instagram. You can go to digitalbloomiq.com and just send me a quick message, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can also email me at cynthia@digitalbloomiq.com if you've got any thoughts, or if you're wanting me to expand on something specific. All right, my friends, I hope you're having a great day, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.